This is definitely the closest I have come to fully understanding the mystery of Sukuna's true curse technique. I have made good theories on this in the past, but since reading chapter 257, I feel like we have way more information on it than ever before. Alongside explaining exactly what Sukuna's shrine technique is, we will also be discussing some things that I realized have been staring us in the face for a very long time, and they are so obvious. And remember, if you disagree with my theories or think my takes are silly, then make sure to like and subscribe for more silly and shit takes. And if you like and subscribe, I promise to make a public apology for L opinions and delete my channel for good. The first thing I want to clear up is that the true name of Sukuna's curse technique, Shrine, was actually revealed a long time ago. But thanks to some dodgy translations and some people who are outright dumb, it was never really picked up on. Yorozu, one of the strongest sorcerers of the Heian era who was killed by Sukuna himself, referred to Sukuna's curse technique as Shrine in the Culling Games. But of course, Mr. John Weary himself decided Gege must have just forgotten to write Malevolent, so he took it upon himself to fill in the gaps. But Yorozu does not say Malevolent Shrine, she just says Shrine in reference to Sukuna's true curse technique. As a Heian era sorcerer, Yorozu could easily have this information on Sukuna's curse technique that modern day sorcerers do not have. But even though this moment is what revealed Sukuna's true curse technique to be Shrine, it doesn't really tell us anything about what the Shrine does. Well, other than allowing Sukuna to reject incredibly attractive and naked sorcerers. However, Yorozu was not the only one to recognize Sukuna's technique as Shrine, since Gojo did the exact same thing in his fight against Sukuna. But this time, Gojo actually gives us a very subtle clue as to what Shrine actually is. By the way, John Weary decided that these translations needed to be up too, so please go and read the TCB before you all start screaming at me that I'm wrong. Gojo says Shrine and not Malevolent Shrine, and the same applies to Yorozu. Anyway, in chapter 233, Satoru Gojo says, and I quote, "Unless he applies it externally to his domain, he can't use Shrine and the 10 Shadows simultaneously." And honestly, go and compare that to what John Weary wrote and you will realize exactly what I mean. Anywho, Gojo, who possesses the Six Eyes, called Sukuna's curse technique Shrine, and we know from Baghead and Miguel that Gojo's Six Eyes can actually determine the details of one's curse technique. With Yorozu being from the Heian era and Gojo having the Six Eyes, I feel confident trusting these two sorcerers when they say that Sukuna's curse technique is Shrine. And that is why it was absolutely no shock to me when Sukuna finally confirmed it in chapter 257. Now that's all well and good, but we also want to know what the it does. Well, in chapter 228, Gojo gives a pretty good hint as to what it actually is. And to be honest, this hint is very often overlooked. Gojo questions if Sukuna is only using curse techniques granted by the domain. Now this clearly suggests that Gojo thinks Sukuna has multiple techniques. And I know what you're all thinking. Gojo's talking about the fact that Sukuna isn't using Megumi's 10 Shadows. Well, I definitely see why you would interpret it that way, but at the same time, no. He does then continue on to question why Sukuna hasn't used 10 Shadows in the domain, but I think it would be incredibly weird wording for Gojo to say not using any curse techniques other than if he didn't think Sukuna had multiple options. He's probably wondering why Sukuna isn't using 10 Shadows or any other technique since he can't do both simultaneously and he's just choosing to do neither. But obviously the readers know that it's because Sukuna is actually working his plan of adapting Maharaga to Infinite Void. You also gotta ask how Gojo knew Sukuna wasn't able to go all out. In the airport chapter, Gojo makes it very clear that Sukuna was not able to give it everything he's got. But how does he know that? Well, I think it's because Gojo already had a decent understanding of the Shrine technique, and these comments reveal a lot more now that Shrine is officially confirmed. But the point of this is that Sukuna's Shrine technique almost definitely involves the collection of other curse techniques. And of course, Sukuna's fire arrow against Jogo and Maharaga was also a huge indicator that Sukuna's curse technique actually stores other curse techniques. But the question I have finally found an answer for is how does he do it? Well, simply put, Shrine is just a shrine. I mean, it was obvious. Like, look at its name, appearance, and the fact that Sukuna seems to have multiple curse techniques. Literally just look up your standard dictionary definition of shrine and you will find a definition that perfectly matches Sukuna's curse technique. In case you can't be asked to do that though, I'll do it for you. It can mean many things, but the most fitting descriptions are a collection of tools and weapons as well as something people worship, or more accurately, they worship what the shrine represents. One definition even says a case or a box where sacred relics are deposited, so surely you don't need Todo's IQ to understand that shrine is likely a means of collecting curse techniques as weapons. And just like all of the other curse techniques in the series, it perfectly represents Sukuna's character in many ways. I mean, first off, commoners and farmers used to literally worship Sukuna and bring offerings, which is like the entire point of a shrine. The condition for adding a curse technique to shrine is also very fitting for Sukuna, and I believe that condition is simply eating a part of the sorcerer with that curse technique. As we have discussed before, Sukuna's whole thing is eating. Hell, we just learned that he ate his own twin in the womb, which is probably what started him on this cannibalism addiction journey in the first place. Not to mention, Arame is only tolerated because they are Sukuna's personal chef who prepares people for consumption, and this information was pretty much outright outright confirmed in the fanbook's Q&A, but it should not take a light Yagami to realize that Arame's techniques and skills when preparing the bath also strongly suggest this. Sukuna eats when he wants to eat, and he kills when he is bored. So I think the shrine technique is as simple as Sukuna consuming part of the curse technique's user and then storing the new curse technique in his shrine, which is effectively just a receptacle or a box for holding potentially infinite numbers of curse techniques. Now, a fun and slightly unfactual fact for you guys is that the first thing Sukuna did when taking over Megami and encountering Angel was literally eating Angel's arm right off her body. Like, why that reaction? Low output or not, Dismantle and Cleave should heavily injure Angel, so why try literally eating her? Well, I'll tell you why. It's because Jacob's Ladder is a goated as f technique and Sukuna wanted it. In fact, if my theory is correct, Sukuna should already have Jacob's Ladder in his shrine, which is a terrifying thought. Now, the matter of storing curse techniques in general is a bit tricky, because Sukuna says that curse techniques are engraved around your right prefrontal cortex, and the narrator says that they're engraved on the body, and I personally think they're engraved on the soul, but who really knows? I mean, if they were normally engraved in the brain, then Kenjaku wouldn't be able to use his host's curse technique, because the whole point of his curse technique is to kick their brain out of their body. Yuki also says that the brain's memory can only handle 3 to 4 curse techniques at one time, but this doesn't ruin my theory in any way, because the whole point of the Shrine Curse technique is to bypass the brain's limitations and be a technique specifically for storing multiple techniques. It is effectively a technique that allows you to become the King of Curses. I think what happens is that Shrine stores the curse techniques and Sukuna chooses one to always have active on his brain. And the way I think he activates a technique stored in Shrine is by performing the black box open chant to switch out the technique which occupies his brain. In theory though, Sukuna should be able to have 3 to 4 techniques at one time occupying his brain, but he chooses to only have Dismantle and Cleave because he doesn't really need any more than that. When using a fire arrow though, we don't see him use the chant to switch back to Dismantle, which means he probably leaves it active at all times. It does make a lot of sense that Sukuna's favourite technique is Cleave and Dismantle because knives and cooking and food and all that shit. And then there's the matter of his domain. Other sorcerers with multiple curse techniques, like Yuta and Kenjaku, can actually change the guaranteed hit of their domain. And in my opinion, you're crazy if you think Sukuna can't do the same. It's just that he's had absolutely no need to change it so far, and he probably just favours Cleave over any other technique. And if he did want to change it, he would have to open Shrine and choose a curse technique to occupy his brain, which would reveal more about his curse technique than he really needs to, especially against someone as resourceful and adaptive as Gojo. Now, normally multiple curse techniques can't be used at once if you have more than 2 stored in your brain's memory. But for multiple curse technique and domain users, like Kenjaku, Yuta, and Sukuna, there is a sly way of bypassing this and using 2 at once. Once a technique is imbued into your domain, your brain no longer has the burden of running that curse technique non-stop. This means that you can use another technique or something like domain amplification while having a technique as your guaranteed hit. Sukuna actually did this in his fight against Satoru Gojo by using Malevolent Shrine's guaranteed hit and domain amplification at the same time. And this is something that you can't really do outside of a domain because you can't use a technique and domain amp at the same time. And this is even more reason to suggest that Sukuna's guaranteed hit can actually change, but he just has no reason to change it. Oh, and I guess he did the same thing against Maharaga, where he used Malevolent Shrine to slice and then switched his main curse technique to fire and attacked manually. This idea of Shrine being a storage unit that requires a chant to open and eating sorcerers as the copy condition is very simple, very fitting, very versatile, and blatantly OP. But the best thing is, it doesn't break any rules. I think everything about this theory just makes sense. However, there is one problem that I'm sure you have all clocked onto right about now. So before you go scurrying off to the comments, just hear me out because I'm convinced I can turn this problem into something incredible. But yes, the main problem with this theory is Yuta. And you're totally right, it is just the same as Yuta. He copies a curse technique by eating part of a sorcerer. Yeah, exactly the same. But regardless of whether you like it being the same or not, the fact that Yuta also possesses this ability is genuinely just more evidence backing up this theory. Consider Sukuna's big bad scary title, the King of Curses. Now consider big scary curse Rika, who is also titled the Queen of Curses. Sure, Rika is definitely strong, but how the f did she manage to earn herself a title on the same level as Ryomen Sukuna? Well, it's because the titles King and Queen of Curses don't actually represent their power level at all. Many interpret the title King or Queen of Curses to mean the strongest among curses, but that's not really how that works. The King of Curses can simply imply that Sukuna is the Master of Curses. And bear in mind, curses simply mean jujutsu and applications of curse energy, not literal curse spirits. It's like when Geto says the least you could do is hit me with some curses. He's basically just saying to Gojo, hit me with a hollow purple already, you lanky fuck. So if Sukuna's shrine truly is a storage place for techniques he deemed worthy of preserving, then it makes sense why he would be called the King of Curses. As discussed earlier, a sorcerer needs some kind of receptacle to hold more than 3 curse techniques at once, and Yuta's receptacle is none other than Rika, the Queen of Curses. We have seen Yuta whip out 6 techniques already, and we have caught a glimpse of multiple other curse tools being stored by Rika. It is also heavily, and I mean heavily, suggested that Rika must eat part of the sorcerer in order to store their technique. So basically, Rika is Yuta's external shrine, hence why she holds the title of Queen of Curses alongside the king, despite being obviously weaker than Sukuna. I mean, you may not like it, but you can't deny that it does make a lot of sense. Now, some people may not like this idea because it does effectively put Yuta's copy on the same level as Yuji's shrine. But to be fair, some people said there was no way both Yuta and Yuji will use Cleave because it would undermine Yuji's big moment. And yet here we are, and no one really gives a fuck. I'm not trying to say, oh, Yuta is the main character too, bro. No, that's not my point. Yuji is the main character of Jujutsu Kaisen. I just think that it makes no sense for Yuji, the main character of Jujutsu Kaisen, to fight the final fight alone, given all of Gojo's intentions and efforts to change that. Hell, he even wanted to make Sukuna understand that. And to me, the new king and Queen of Curses facing off against Sukuna once again, but this time with the intent to kill, would go so hard. Well, to be honest, I think we're gonna get what I call the 4 horsemen at full power in round 2 of Jump Jutsu Kaisen. However, my 4 horsemen theory is totally separate from Shrine, so it will have to wait for another video. But spoiler alert, Hikari is not one of them. Anyway, the idea is that the final fight should not be done alone, since Gojo tried that method but ultimately failed. It makes sense to use all of the main characters we have now put together and beat Sukuna. My overall conclusion, however, is simply that Shrine is a storage technique for copied curse techniques acquired by eating sorcerers. It fits Sukuna's character, his title, and the weird Fuga shit that he did in Shibuya. It just works. Anyway, enough of that. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe for more. If you thought the video was mid, be sure to leave a like and subscribe for more. If you hated the video, then be sure to leave a like and subscribe for more. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll hopefully see you this Wednesday with a new video and a 258 prediction stream.